Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hey, welcome. Last show of this week, November 16th. It's Friday. It's a beautiful sunny day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but the news is terrible. The Twinkies company is going bankrupt. They're liquidating. It's over. It's over. It's over. Goodbye, Twinkies. Goodbye, ding-dongs. Goodbye, what? Ho-hos. And, of course, and I didn't even know this, Wonder Bread. It figures. They all go together. Wonder Bread. Actually, this is sort of a fitting demise at this time because Wonder Bread sort of bespeaks, to me, the whole essence of the Republican Party as it's currently constituted. So it is. Isn't that sort of like it's WASP food? Soft, white, no real nutrition, Wonder Bread. And Twinkies. I'll miss those Twinkies, though. Damn it. Oh, well. I was just sent a letter by someone who thought I might enjoy it. And, Ed, you were right. And I want to share some of it with you. It's written by a guy named Eric Garland, who is the author of books on how leaders need to think about the future. He's a smart cookie. And let me just read some of this to you, because he writes it to the Republicans and Republican Party strategists. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Eric Arnold Garland. I am a white man. And if I read the news correctly, I fit a profile that is of extreme importance to you, the GOP, as I embody the archetype that fits your narrative of real Americans. Actually, he goes on to give his bona fides. My family lineage goes back to the Mayflower. I am heterosexual, married to the super Caucasian mother of my two beautiful children who are inexplicably even whiter than I am. I am college educated, master's degree. I'm affluent. I'm a job creator and a small businessman. I pay a lot of taxes every year. I grew up in a rural area. I despise laziness. Having started my own business, I have complained at length about the insanity of federal, state, and local bureaucracy. I currently live in the suburbs in a historically red state. But how can I put this gently? My wife and I are not sensitive to your messaging, nor did we vote for the candidates you proposed this past Tuesday. And then he goes on to say, now, if you're having trouble processing that, given the profile I gave you, after all, aren't we investors, hardworking white folks surrounded by other hardworking white folks in a manicured cul-de-sac? Didn't Mitt Romney's strong family, wealth, leadership history, and chiseled chin give us the uncontrollable urge to high-five him right into the White House? No. And may I explain why not? And I'm doing this purely for your education, such that you might actually be interested in winning an election on the national level at some point in the future. It bears pointing out that I should be your low-hanging fruit, the easy vote to get, as opposed to, say, African Americans, Latinos, Asians, and you're not even speaking well to me. Here's where he tells the GOP they lost him. Science. One of the reasons my family is affluent is that my wife and I have a collective 15 years of university education between us. I have a master's degree in science and technology policy, and my wife is a physician who holds degrees in medicine as well as cell and molecular biology. We are really quite unimpressed with Republicans who actually serve on the House Science Committee, we were talking about this yesterday, and who believe respectively that rape doesn't cause pregnancy, that evolution and astrophysics are lies straight from Satan's butt cheeks. Please understand the unbearable tension that this creates between us and your candidates. And then there's the subject of climate. Within just the past 18 months, the following events have come to our attention. Record-breaking drought that sent temperatures over 100 degrees, killed half the corn in the Midwest, half the trees on our suburban property, and a hurricane that drowned not only New Orleans, that didn't drown New Orleans or Tampa or North Carolina, but my native state of Vermont. As an encore, a second hurricane drowned Lower Manhattan, New Jersey, and Long Island. And yet, Republicans continue to shout that global change, weather change, is a fraud perpetrated on the American people by evil, conspiring climate scientists. Another subject that you lose me on, even though I'm a white, heterosexual, suburban male, healthcare. My wife and I are quite familiar with America's healthcare system due to our professions and having lived abroad extensively, also very aware of comparable systems. Your party's insistence on declaring the private U.S. healthcare system the best in the world fails nearly every factual measure available. I'll skip a lot of this. And yes, I watch European and Asian businesses outpace American companies because they can attract talent without asking people to risk bankruptcy and death. That you think is talking about how employers in this country have to handle the costs of health insurance. The countries we compete against don't. The businesses there. It totally handicaps us. And that Republicans would think that this state of affairs is somehow preferable to Obamacare, which you ludicrously compare, he says, to the Republicans' Trotskyite Russian communism. Well, it's a sign, guys, of a simply deficient mind, unfit to guide health policy in this country. Why should I vote for that? And then there's war. Nations do have to go to war sometimes, but that Iraq one, that was pretty bad, to put it mildly. Somebody should have been, fired for bad performance. I mean, aren't you the party of good corporate managers or something? You guys suck at running wars. Let's just put it at that. Then there's deficits and debts. Whenever the GOP is out of power, it immediately appeals to the imagination of voters who remember the LBJ administration and claim that the Republican alternative is the party of cutting spending and reducing the deficit. The only problem with that claim is that Republican governments throughout my entire life, this guy's life, have failed to cut spending and deficits and debt even once. You know, your credibility suffers every time you promise one thing and then do the exact opposite. If you actually were the party of fiscal responsibility, you might even win some of our votes despite your 13th century view of science. And then he goes after him for gay marriage. The institution of middle-class suburban marriage was broken by the generation of aging white baby boomers who populate what is left of the Republican Party. And moreover, as someone who got called faggot about 127 times a day from the years 1985 through 91, I grew up to be pretty good friends with actual homosexuals whose sexual orientation is usually the least significant thing about them. The Republican perseveration?
Preservation? No.
It says perseveration on homosexuals as any sort of threat consigns them to history's trough of intellectual pig shit. Okay, this guy is he's even just warming up. And then he says, let's do one last point, though, meanness. Your party is really mean, mocking and demonizing everyone who doesn't follow you into the pits of hell. You constantly imply, as Mitt Romney did just again the other day, that anybody who disagrees with you does so not by logic or by moral conviction, but because they're shiftless, lazy parasites who want free stuff. You guys managed to follow up a stunning electoral defeat with insulting the very people you wish to attract for a majority in the political system. That's brilliant. You are losing elections because being angry and defensive and just plain mean is more important than being smart and winning elections. And so you deserve everything happening to you. If you want to know exactly where you failed in 2012 and will continue to fail, here it is. Okay. We know we're having video problems. Trying to fix them. I'm so sorry you're being denied the joy of seeing me in my orange sweater today. Anyway, I'll finish this guy's thing up. Look, you assholes. I'm as traditional as an American as it gets. And there's a picture of him and his family, and they just look like Wonder Bread. I'm as traditional an American as it gets, and I don't want free stuff. I'm a taxpayer and always have been. I got my first job dragging bags of cow manure, horse feed, and fertilizer around a farm store when I was 12. I started my first company when I was 28. I have followed the vast majority of the rules set out for middle-class white males, for good and for ill. And if it weren't bad enough that your policy positions are a complete clusterfuck for the reasons I lay out in great detail, you managed to follow up the whole exercise with insulting me, my wife, my friends of every stripe who didn't vote for your political party, all of whom are hard-working, tax-paying, job-creating, law-abiding, great Americans of every color and creed. So from this white Mayflower-descended strategic analyst, allow me to offer you 3 strategic options you have before you. 1, you drastically moderate your platform to harmonize with the policy positions I have presented. 2, you disband the party and reorganize it to reflect current realities. Or 3, you kick and scream and stamp your feet and call me and my friends names and submit to several decades of one-party rule. While I don't want a one-party system, I also don't particularly care which of these options you choose. If you look carefully at the numbers, the election, nobody else cares either. Just a word to the wise from one white man to another. Well, that's interesting because, this guy it turns out he lives in the same place my sister lives, in the suburbs of St. Louis. And yeah, he's about as white as you get, and his wife is whiter, and his kids, heavens, they're blinding. And he's absolutely fits the profile. In fact, my sister's husband does too. He's always laughing how he gets sent all these Republican kinds of, I don't know, pamphlets, this is and that, because he's a doctor, he's a suburbanite, he's white, he's married, he's blah, blah, blah. He's exactly this. He's, there's just the assumption by the Republicans that, of course, he would be one of us. And so what this guy's saying, and what's interesting here, is the Republicans are having trouble now even holding on to the